Today we are in Xi'an of Shaanxi province, and we are now at the Baolongyu testing ground for liquid propellant of rockets of the Academy of Aerospace Propulsion Technology. The reason we are doing the live broadcast here is because you might see the launching of rockets for many times, but have you ever seen what does the engine for rockets look like? Now let's go in and take a look. Dear viewers, you can follow our camera, and here you can see this is a testing platform for the engine. That's where the engine of the rockets are being tested. Today we'll visit 3 places. The first is the control center for the testing of engines, of rocket engines, and see how are they giving commands at the control center. And second is this testing platform. And it's also the facility that you're looking at. And also here you can see how the engine, what the engine look like. And the third location we're going to visit might be very interesting to you. During the launching of the rocket, you might be able to see the Boca crater look like. And this would be the booster. Can you see the testing image, testing video for the booster? I think they look quite similar to the images of an actual launch. And today we'll also take a closer look. Before entering into the control room, we have a little surprise for you. And we'll also be taking your questions. And we'll be asking you questions on our side. The answers can be found in our broadcast. If you can answer the question correctly, we will be giving you little gifts. These gifts are provided by the 6th Academy of Aerospace Propulsion Technology and will be a model for the Long March number 7. And also emblem for the rocket. After raising the question, the first people who give the correct answer will be getting this very cool model of rocket. And now let's go into the control room. We are experiencing some break off of the signal because we are now entering into the elevator. in 1960s, we are facing very severe international conditions, and the heavy industry and defense technology mainly locates in the coastal regions, and they are easily affected. Therefore, in 1964, the central government decided to build in the third-tier cities heavy industry base and national defense base. After decades of efforts, we've already built this very strong backup base for military defense and aerospace. Many technologists and technicians came to the West to start and to make efforts to the career. And today we are at the liquid propellant R&D center in Xi'an. And now we are entering into the control room. Here we have a very senior expert of rocket engine waiting for us. Mr. Zhang, say hello to our viewer. This is Mr. ZhangEnzhan, a rocket engine expert of the Academy. Welcome. Welcome to our Academy. We are now in a control room. Can you give us a brief introduction of this control center and how do you do in your daily work? This is the control and testing central for engine testing. All the preparatory work are finished here before the actual testing. And now I can show you the different channels of the testing center. Through the screen, you might observe there are different parameters and diagrams. They are all key parameters on a rocket engine, and we need to test each item. If the conditions are met, you can observe the condition here. And also, let's move ahead. The central screen now has no display, but during the testing, you can directly see via the central screen the actual working condition and situation of the engine. And also you can observe even the flame of the engines during its working process. This big screen can demonstrate the working condition of the rocket engine. And you can also observe whether there is a leakage of flames or fire or any abnormality here through the screen. Mr. Zhang, since we're at the control room, there has to be one commander for each testing, right? So where does the commander sit? Now, this will be where he sits during the testing. And he will be sitting at the end of this workstation. And in this way, he can observe all sides and all corners of the screen. When he turns around, he can directly observe the situation of the testing, because right now we can look at the testing platform through this window. That would be the blue doors. During the testing, the blue doors will be opened. And that's why through this window you can observe the actual condition of the engine. Therefore, the commander, the chief commander, or commanders, there will be 3 commanders for each testing. The 3 commanders will be sitting at the 3 chairs. So it's not 1 commander, it's 3 commanders. But there is a chief commander who will be giving the final order if all the parameters are normal. And he will be giving the order of starting the test. In this control room, you can see a lot of chairs. During the actual testing, the room will be full of people. Each technician will be in charge of a certain parameter, and he must make sure that this parameter is working normally. How many observers or technicians will there be during an actual testing? You can see in the front row there are 10 seats. In the second row there are about 15 seats. So everybody has its own dual responsibility, and each one must do their work well. So for each function parameter, there will be a first responder. In case anything goes wrong, there will be a first responder to handle the situation. So what's this sitting area for? Before the testing, there will be a lot of people who are interested and have been followed closely the R&D of the engine. Therefore, during the testing, we will invite these people to sit at the back so that they can observe this testing firsthand. That is like an observatory room for the testing. And here you can see is soundproof glass, and so as to exclude any noise from disturbing the working process. The viewers at the observatory room can talk whatever they want, but it will not affect the situation in the control room. And in this room, people will not hear a thing from the outside. But the observatory can hear the commander's demand through the speaker. They cannot hear the actual sound and voice of the commander, but they can know what is what's going on through the speaker. Besides being a rocket expert, he started working in the 1960s, and he's been working in this industry for more than 50 years. And that is true. I came here to Xi'an, or the so-called Tier 3 city in the 1970s, participating in R&D for a rocket engine. And that time the situation is far more difficult than it is right now. We are literally working in the mountains. That is the Hongguang Valley back then. So what was the situation like back then in Hongguang Valley? At that time, the Hongguang Valley was at the west of Xi'an city in the Qinling Mountain. The central government gave demand and decided that we need to build a so-called Tier 3 defense base and technological base in these cities. So we answer the command of the country and move to the so-called Tier 3 cities. And this process started in the 1960s. But I only participated in this work starting from the 1970s. And that's when I started working in Tier 3 base. So what was the working condition like back then? It is incomparable to what it is today. We are literally working in the mountains. And the valley is about more than 10 kilometers deep. If you want to go into the valley, it is a 15 kilometers walk. There weren't many flat grounds for you to place your facility. Therefore, in a very small area, there is dorm, there's hospital and working facilities, and they all located in a very narrow valley in very narrow space. So it's a 15 minutes walk from beginning to end. Therefore, the situation is dire, and life was hard back then. I think there is a big gap between the living standard of the Beijing, the capital, and the Hongguang Valley back then. But people were still very passionate about their work because they have the ambition and this sense of responsibility when they came here. They fear no challenges and difficulties, and they are quite resolved and determined to make the Tier 3 base the top notch in nationally. So looking back at life back then, what impressed you the most about life back then? It is really a memorable experience for me. It is a test for any people. It is not something that common people can endure because the situation is really challenging and difficult. Living condition is so severe, and it's quite what leaves the deepest impression for you. When we first came here, despite the preparation beforehand, but when we see what we saw back then, we are startled because the living condition is so poor. People are living in the 2-story buildings, very shabby. And 2 families had to share 1 bathroom and 1 kitchen. And sometimes in some places there weren't even a bathroom, which you can imagine how difficult that would be. And there weren't many good things to eat back then. And you might wonder, what does Hongguang Valley look like now? And we have prepared a short video for you, and you can take a look at the current situation. And back then, the condition was far more worse than this. Back then, there weren't a very concentrated residential area for the villagers. There weren't animal husbandry back then. So there is a scarcity of food resources. We are lacking food. Therefore, we have to send big trucks to outside the mountains to get food back. And meat was a rare thing back then. Whenever there was meat, it would be like a spring festival. And everybody can have a bite. So you've suffered a lot, but you've also made great contribution. And anyone that impressed you the most during your 50 years of work? Any particular human being or anything that leaves a deep memory on you? Mr. Zhang is someone who contributed a lot to this work, but stayed very low profile. So were you impressed, were you influenced by your own instructor? I came here in 1970s and left this place in 1990s. But during my working time, I had a very good leader, a very outstanding leader. And he is now the only academician of the 6th Academy of Aerospace Propulsion, Mr. Zhang Weitian. So what impressed you most about him? We've been through a lot, and his devotion to work, to technology, impressed me the most. But he was very friendly and kind to people. Whenever you have difficulty, if you come to him, he will do everything he can to address the problem for you. I think you're describing yourself, Mr. Zhang. No, I'm nothing compared to him. He is my mentor. I learned a lot from him. He, although was the leader back then, he had the same living conditions. He ate the same food with us. The working condition was so hard that it was impossible to actually produce or testing. We have no condition for production or testing. Of course, it would be impossible for us to research and develop an engine, even under such a difficult circumstance. We still, after all of these trials and errors, ups and downs, we are now one of the leading countries worldwide in rocket engines. Yes, right now we are seeing the liquid propellant testing platform here. But back then, we have no ability of producing that in the Hongguang Valley. When it was researched, you need to find production base and testing base outside the valley. So the situation was really challenging back then. 6 months, in 6 months out of a year, the group leaders are they're out on trips, and instead of staying at home, they have to go out and find production base. Experiencing such a complex situation, despite the difficulties we endured, we still managed to make such great achievement, especially in terms of liquid propellant R&D. So are you proud of your work? I believe that this experience is very precious to all of the workers here. Okay, thank you, Mr. Zhang. We are off to the next location. Next location will be the testing ground, and there we'll have another expert to give us an introduction. And our next expert will be the disciple of Mr. Zhang. So there is a very good heritage when it comes to China's aerospace industry. As I said, we'll give you interactive questions during the live broadcast. And my first question is, there are 2 platforms for testing. This is one of the testing platform. This is a second platform, also the one that we are. And can you guess which platform we're going? The 2 platforms are named 901 and 902. So the one we're visiting is 901 or 902. Can you give a guess? Please answer the question as soon as possible. The first one who gets the correct answer will be getting a rocket model. That is the CCTV.com.
再给各位网友重复一下，我们现在要带大家去看的这个试车平台是
Let me repeat the question.
901平台还是902平台
What is the number of the platform we are about to visit? Is it 901 or 902? Please leave your answers on our bulletin board. And the first to get the correct answer will be getting a rocket model. And also, another 3 viewers who gave the correct answer will have a set of emblems. They will get a set of emblems, altogether 4 emblems. This is Mr. Chen Jianhua, an expert for the liquid propellant of the Academy. Say hi to our viewers. I just gave our viewer a question. Which platform is this testing platform? This is platform 901. What are the differences between these 2 platforms? The most advanced propellant engine has to go through ground testing. 901 testing ground is used for 120 tons of liquid propellant engine. And 902 is used for 18-ton level engine. They are used on Long March 5, 6, and 7 carrier rockets. And they're the key national projects. Now let's come closer. So 901 is used for 120-ton level engine. 902 used for 18 level ton level of engine. So what is this platform made of? The rocket, after it takes off, the booster will be propelling the rocket forward. But during ground testing, you can't just let the booster propel the facility to outer space, of course. Therefore, it is made of steel, and you can see steel shelves here, so as to fix the engine firmly on the ground. Back in the 1980s, when we are still working in La Valley, and the platform were not advanced as it is now today. And today this platform is quite advanced and is state-of-the-art technology and can give you very precise parameters and statistics. Now let's go inside to the testing platform. We are about to see the liquid propellant engine of the rocket. There it is, the rocket engine. It's quite different than your normal car engine, right? And this would be the liquid propellant rocket engine. can see some staff still working. Can you ask one of the technicians to come down to talk to us? So which part will be the engine that actually goes in to a rocket? This is the whole engine. The upper side will be connected to the rocket. And the lower part will be the booster. And that's also where the flame comes out. Let's invite an engineer for this testing platform. Say hi to our viewers. Hello, everyone. We can see a lot of people still working. And can you tell us what we are doing, what they are doing right now? They are running some tests for the engines, and after the Spring Festival, we'll have a one round of testing, and they are doing some thorough preparatory work for this engine to see if everything works all right. And see whether it's ready for the testing after the Spring Festival. So are they checking the entire structure or the parameters? It's about the structure mainly. So top down, it is quite a big chunk. It's not entirely engine, right? On the second platform, from the second platform to the ground, that will be the booster, and the upper side would be the testing platform for the engine. And you can see the blue shelves that is holding the testing platform steady. In a ground testing, unlike an actual launch, during which the rockets will be boosted to outer space, a ground test has to be able to fix the engine firmly on the ground and measure the boosting force during the testing. And that's what the blue shelves are for. They are a fixer for the engine and the measuring platform. So is it fair to say that the thrust of the engine will be tested through the upper level platform, right? That is correct. How many sensors were there to be able to test the exact number of the thrust? Altogether, there were more than 200 sensors testing temperature, flow, and pressure, and speed. So there are more than 200 sensors. All of the parameters will be transferred to the control room screen that you just saw. Thank you, Mr. Shen. We can now see that the level 1 and level 2 platform have different functions. And here you can see a stair. If you go through here, you can reach the level 2 testing platform, and that's where the rocket engine will be fixated. Since it's an engine, where does the propellant go? Mr. Chen, can you tell us where does the propellant go for the rocket? And during an actual launch, you will have a tank for the propellant, but in a ground testing, the propellant will be supplied through pipelines, providing oxidant and fuel separately. The liquid engine has a container back there, and they will be transferred to the engine through a pipeline. So we have oxidant as well as fuel containers. And we heard that this engine is completely environmentally friendly. So what will be the emission for the engine? It will be only water and carbon dioxide. So it is quite environmental friendly. And it is not toxic. Well, to be frank, it is mild toxic, but it is not harmful to the environment or to human health. So it is environmentally friendly, it's clean, and it's also performing very well and highly efficient. And you are very lucky to see the engine still is working right now. That is not something you can see on a daily basis. This is a work after generations of engineers' hard work over many decades. Our viewers were asking, why don't we have a live broadcast during an actual testing? I want to explain that it is forbidden for us to enter into this phase during actual testing for safety reasons. Because there is some possibility that constitute the risk. Under extreme conditions, the engine might explode. So no one is allowed during the testing to come close to the platform. Before the actual testing, we will run some pre-test to see if all the parameters are working all right. And if that's the case, the engine can be handed over to the relevant authorities. As Mr. Chen said, safety comes first in any testing. And during a testing, it is strictly forbidden to come closer to the platform. If if we do a live broadcast on the day of testing, we can only see this in this observatory room instead of come so close to this engine. We can see a small room up there that is for the containing of gas, right? That is correct. We need to test the thrust of the engine. At the same time, we need to control this engine. So as for the engine to perform its functions, and also provide protective gas to this engine. During the ground testing, since there is no rocket, we need to provide a atmosphere to the engine. It's like a simulated situation for the engine.
不该有的我都把它给顶出去，是这意思吗？那个夏天的时候呢，无论是哪个季节，我都要进行这个工作。
对，这个当你问这个问题很重要，多说一句，就是说这个台子一年四季都在工作啊。咱们发动机要在春夏秋冬。
This platform works all year round, in all seasons, and has to be tested under different environmental conditions and temperatures. So in the hot days of summer and cold days of winter, we all need to run tests. And sometimes we lower the temperature of the fuel into -20 or over 30 degrees. The manipulation of the fuel temperature can also be completed through this platform, so as for the engine to be able to work and function under different circumstances. We need to take into consideration all kinds of extreme conditions so as to make the engine more reliable and avoid any possible challenges, possible difficulties and setbacks during actual launch. How many engines are there in a rocket? For example, what about Long March 7? In level 1, there will be 6 engines. 4 boosters, plus another 2 main engine, the new E level engine, so altogether 6 engines. That must be a very big in volume. Last year, we successfully sent out the Tiangong number 1 spaceship, and the total thrust amounts to 720 tons. During a launch will be high temperature, high pressure, and severe conditions. And high speed, so it's high temperature, high pressure, and high speed. So it's working under very severe and unfriendly conditions, to be frank. Can you show us where is the turbo engine? That would be the yellow part on the left. And it rotates 20,000 times per minute. So high temperature, speed, and pressure, that must be really challenging for a rocket engine to work. For an engine to be reliable, it also needs to have high performance. Therefore, we need to make a cycling plan to ensure the high performance of this engine. And the total pressure that has to endure is about 18 million pa. And previously, if this pressure is 1.5 megapa, it will be considered high pressure, but now we can go as high as 18 megapa. We now have the technology, and we are confident that we can keep the situation under control. And although we can say that this is a very cranky child who might sometimes lose his temper, but we are now quite confident that we'll keep his temper at bay. So during research, we'll continue to seek for better achievement and more advanced technologies. Due to time limit, I will not go into details. Thank you for your introduction, and say bye to our viewers. You might want to come take a closer look, but this engine has just experienced one testing, and for safety reasons, we cannot come any closer. And one more look, and we will be going into the next location. That was platform 901, and we already have a winner for the prize.
我这边已经看到答案了，在我们央视新闻移动网上的一位网友昵称叫央视铁粉 A2Z5D9， 很绕口的一个名字，但是央视铁粉这个名字很不错，恭喜这位网友获得了我们长征7号火箭的模型一个，给大家看一下这个火箭长啥样，对着手机看一眼。这是我们的另一个奖品，是小徽章。这就是我们的火箭模型。 今天为什么在这里只能通过那个照片给大家展示呢？因为是这样，我们这个火箭模型啊，现在正在北京的，因为最后给各位网友用快递寄出的时候，也是从北京寄，所以就没有带到西安现场。但是这个火箭模型真的很棒，恭喜刚刚的那位网友了。然后其他的网友。
So that is very cool rocket model for you. If you have any question, please leave us through the bulletin board, through our different channels and platforms, so as to give us questions. And maybe one of you will be the winner for the emblems. And we're going to explore the third location for today's live broadcast. In the video, we saw a lot of flames and mist. Where does all of that come from? And now let's say hi to our third guest for today. This is Mr. Long Feng, a very senior engineer for the academy. I'm working in a national key lab, and working in design of a liquid propellant rocket engine. When did you first start working here? I came here in 2003, directly after college graduation. On the first day of my work, I started the designing work for liquid propellant engine. As a new staff here, I felt that
这样，就因为我那个上学的时候，在西北工业大学上的学，当时也是个小航天迷。99年的时候，我们也国家前后也发生了很多事情，就觉得导弹和火箭非常重要，所以那个时候我们就选择了做这个火箭。当时我们班很多的同学都去了北京、上海，但是我觉得我们的火箭发动机那个时候都并不是很先进，发动机的品种非常单一，最后我就留下来做那个火箭发动机的。我原来是学航空发动机的，就飞机发动机。
飞机发动机，那跟火箭发动机其实区别还蛮大的。
对。
你们同学有从事就是本专业的吗？飞机发动机？
很多人也去了，去做，比如说株洲，他们。
From my college majors. Some of my classmates are working in the aerospace, sometimes are working in aviation. So what does the professionals in aerospace industry have in common? As an aerospace worker, I found that my colleagues are very hardworking and patient. Whenever you have questions, you can come for them to help. That is the so-called aerospace spirit of China. And they are very diligent and have a high sense of responsibility. one of my leaders, whenever he came to the factories, he will have a magnifier with him. We wonder what's that for. Maybe he had bad eyesight. Once I asked one of the other colleagues, why do our leader have to carry around a magnifier? And the answer was, the first thing that they check is the seams of the engine and the materials of the engine, because at the time we don't have as advanced technology as we have today, so there might be defect on the engine. Each time before testing, have to check the seams. As Mr. Zhang said, the rocket engine will be experiencing high pressure, high temperature, and high speed, which will be very hostile environment for it to work. Therefore, we have to make sure that everything is working up to standard. Also, there is a heritage of the aerospace people and aerospace professionals. Mr. Zhang said to me that his mentor is a highly capable man, but very low-key. And Mr. Chen said that his mentor, which is Mr. Zhang, is also very low-key. So what about you? My mentor was Mr. Chen Jianghua. Sometimes when people think about SOE workers, the state-owned enterprises worker, they imagine that we have a very relaxing work life and drink teas and reading newspapers during work time, but it's absolutely not the case for us. When I first started working, we went to the valley, the so-called Tier 3 base. A situation there is so bad, it's so challenging. There was not even one set of TV. So each day it's only about work. And at night, it will be learning time for all of the disciples who will be learning from receiving lessons from their mentors. And that's how the technology and the spirit of aerospace is carried through. Despite the hard work, why do so many people still decide to contribute their life, their youth to this cause of work? I believe aerospace is important to missile weapons. But on the other hand, aerospace also changed our daily lives. For example, the paper diapers seems to be distant to aerospace technology. However, it actually is a upgrade version of aerospace technology. When the first astronaut were sent into space, the paper diaper were invented to facilitate the lives of the astronaut. At the same time, aerospace technology also bring people closer through navigation, satellite, and telecom satellites. And also the combustion technology of aerospace can be used to reduce smog. Therefore, it's changing our lives in all areas. It's not just about launching of rocket. It actually has impact on all aspects of our lives. Without the satellite, without the internet, today's live broadcast would not even be possible. And we have to thank the satellite and aerospace technology to make today's live broadcast possible. I want to say that for the winner of this prize, you'll be getting a rocket model for Long March 7. Please send a screenshot to our email box that is now appearing on the screen. Send us your name, your telephone number, and we'll be contacting you to send this this gift to you. But I want to remind you that because we are now very close to Spring Festival, and we will send out your gift after the festival. We have another viewer who will be getting the set of emblems. Now comes the second question. This program is the fifth of a set of live broadcasts. We are now at the testing ground for liquid propellant rocket in Xi'an. The question is, where was the first live broadcast of this series held? That is on February the 7th. Where is the first live broadcast? Where does the first live broadcast take place? We will have 3 winners for this question. This is the booster, and where the flame goes out, the exit of the flame. Here you can see this channel. That is what we call a diversion trench for the booster. The environment is quite severe, and during each test there will be water flow at both sides. And at the upper end, that will be the emitter of the booster. And when the flame goes down, it will enter into the sink. During each test, you can see a lot of white smoke. They are actually water vapor that is vaporized by this high temperature and flame. The white mist that you see is not the emission of the fuel, but the water vapor due to the high temperature of the combustion process. The testing grounds locates deep into the valley, and on the top of the mountain, higher place of the mountain, we have a reservoir for water, which will be the supplier for the sink. And it can reserve up to thousands of tons of water. You can see you cannot see the water pipeline. They are buried into the cement. The water is used for cooling of the temperature, but during the time of the testing, the temperature will still be very high. So the lower of temperature will be a unavoidable and necessary part of the process. So what will be your expectations in the future for China's aerospace industry? On the one hand, aerospace is an important part of a country's technological level and defense technology. New areas such as Mars exploration and lunar landing on the moon are also important projects, so that will be very important future work. But whatever work you do, you have to have an engine. So power of the aeroplanes comes first. As Kimi said, give me a supporting point and I can lift up the world. Therefore, the bigger the thruster is for the rocket, the bigger the stage that is for our aerospace, and the farther places we will be able to reach. Therefore, the thruster and the capacity for this engine, it guarantees the future development for China's aerospace technology. Thank you for sharing with us as the new generation of aerospace engineer. And again, this is Mr. Li Longfei, an outstanding representative for the new generation of aerospace professionals. Thank you for being with us today. Dear viewers, this is about to come to an end to today's live broadcast. Before we conclude today's broadcast, let me give you the answer for the second question that I raised. Can you give me the ID of the second winner? I'm sorry, we do not have the name of the winner right now, but I can tell you the answer right now. This is our email box. The answer to the second question is in Mianyang city of Sichuan province. That's where we carry out the first live broadcast of the series. That is carried out on February the 7th. Now I have the winner for the second question. Congratulations to this viewer. The correct answer will be Mianyang of Sichuan province. Please send us a screenshot to our email together with your personal address, contacts, and real name. And we'll be sending out your gift, that is a model for Long March 7, to you after the Spring Festival. It is provided by the Academy of Aerospace Propulsion Technology. We also have another viewer who has been the winner of the set of emblems. The second second broadcast of this series carried out in Guizhou. The first live broadcast took place in Sichuan province. If there are not more questions, that will be the end of today's live broadcast. This series of live broadcast aims at reminding us of the difficult time that we had during the scientific research history. So if you're interested in aerospace technology and the so-called third-tier work and life, please continue to follow us for more live broadcasts. And tomorrow at the same time, we have another reporter, Ms. Wang Shiyu, will be broadcasting to you in Xi'an city of Hubei province. That concludes today's live broadcast. Goodbye, everyone.